I'm Abi Weaver here with David Plouffe, American Political Strategist, and soon to be Senior Vice President for the car sharing company Uber. Mr. Plouffe, thank you for joining us.
Good to be here.
You attended the University of Delaware, but you ended up leaving to pursue a political career in '89 before actually graduating. Then you end up on the Tom Harkin campaign, his 1990 re-election campaign. How did you go about getting such a position?
Well, this is going to sound really dated to you and your viewers, but we used to have things called campus newspapers that was the only way to get them, right? There's no digital version. And I had done a lot of things in college during summers, cleaned chimneys and sold knives door to door and stocked warehouses, taught tennis, things to get money in the door. And I saw an ad for a local Democratic campaign in Delaware. And I decided to take a flyer on that and see if I liked politics. I was interested in it. And it was a great experience, and my boss in that campaign went out to Iowa and called me the next summer and said, do you want to come out to Iowa? And Iowa, even then it's the training ground for politics. It's where the caucuses happen. And so I decided to go out there and work for Tom Harkin, who's actually leaving the Senate finally, and I'm heading out to Iowa this weekend for his final steak fry, which is one of the events that propelled Barack Obama to the presidency.
As that was your first campaign, what did you learn from that to apply to your future political work then?
Well, I think anyone who has an interest in politics, and I know I'm biased on this, but they ought to try it. They ought to try a campaign. It's not for everybody. The hours are long, pay's gotten better, but it's still not great. But I learned that, the reason I probably stayed in politics was the first race I worked on was the Senate primary in Delaware. And we were the underdog. We were down 18, 20 points about a month out. Then we started coming on strong. And we were declared the victor on election night. Victory speech, balloons come down in the general election. And that was on a Saturday night. By Monday morning, they had discovered a vote count error. And they had given us, I don't know why we didn't discover this that night, but they had given us 2,828 votes in a precinct instead of 28. So we went from a pretty big win to up 3. And then after the recount, we lost by 71 votes. And I think for all of us, and certainly for me, I said, if any of us had worked a little bit harder, we could have scrounged up 72 votes. And so I always thought politics was important, campaigns mattered, but you see the impact that an individual can have. And that's really what stuck with me, is that you gotta, campaigns are like any business or school. You gotta have a strategy and you gotta have the resources. But it really comes down to a lot of hard work.
How else was it different to work on a campaign that ends in victory versus one that ends up in a loss? Well,
there's nothing worse than losing on election night. It is a depressing deal. No balloons come down. Maybe more gets drank, but it's a tough deal. Because campaigns, you become a family. You've got all the staff working together, all the volunteers. You sweat it out for sometimes months, sometimes years. But the converse is there's nothing like winning on election night. In politics, you have election day. And you win or you lose. There's no gray area. You can say, I ran a great campaign, but we lost. Okay, fine, but guess what? You lost. So you are judged in a very public way whether you won or lost. And so to win, there's nothing like it.
What would you say would be the most important points that you have learned?
More than anything, the lesson I think that's a constant that won't change is you're going to be only as good as the people around you, right? So I've learned, I've managed a lot, and I've only been as strong as my senior people around me. If you got weakness in your senior team, you're going to fail. Not that everybody's like overly polite. Campaigns are tough. You got to be willing to speak your mind. But you can do it in a collegial way so that everybody's rowing in the same direction. And in both Obama campaigns, for the most part, we were able to have that. And it's one of the reasons we won, because the human being element of this is really important.
So since you brought up the Obama campaign, you actually began working with him in his 2004 Illinois state
campaign?
Yeah,
when he ran for the U.S. Senate. Yeah, he was a state senator then, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how did that role prepare you then, and what role did that play in you later working on his presidential campaign?
Well, I got to know him very well, but the notion that he would be elected president 4 years afterwards was, nonsense, okay? None of us believed that. But I got to know him, and he was a person of high character. I've been lucky, not everybody running for politics is someone that inspires you. And I had that experience with Barack Obama. But more than anything else, he was, obviously he's a shining intellect, a guy of high character, but he's just a normal person. He still is.
So how did the presidential campaign then compare to his Senate campaign?
There's no comparison. I mean, a presidential campaign is, I'll put it this way. It's the most exhilarating thing to be a part of. Whether you win or lose, to be in Iowa, be in New Hampshire, the debates, but it's really, really grueling. I mean, everyone always asks me now, who's going to be the Republican nominee? And, you know, well, this person's got this strength, or they come from this state, or they have this set of physicians. I say, before you talk about any of that, who looks good on paper, just understand most people won't survive the process, particularly in today's media environment. You know, George Bush and Barack Obama different in many ways, but they actually are built to withstand the modern political environment. They're very calm, they're very measured. Other presidents who won in different times might not survive the Twitter world we're in.
You actually personally have often been credited with much of the success of Obama's 2008 campaign, based on the strategy that you used, which included not just the large states, but focusing also on the small states. So if you could just describe your overall strategy and why you think that was successful.
Well, I'm certainly not the only author of that strategy. You know, I had a lot of co-conspirators in that regard. But the real heroes of the campaign were the volunteers out there. So, you know, there's no doubt we had a good strategy. They said, listen, Hillary Clinton's likely to win the Californias and the New Jerseys and the Massachusetts. And both Democratic and Republican races are not decided by whether you win the state or not. It's the number of delegates you acquire. We won't bore your viewers with a delegate tutorial. But it was clear we had to make up ground elsewhere. And we thought if we could run up some big margins in some other states, even though they were small, we'd acquire enough delegates. Now, that was a fine strategy, but if we didn't have people out there willing to execute it, and see, what Barack Obama had was passionate supporters.
After this long ride, you ended up leaving the White House in 2013, I believe, to pursue entirely new work. And now it looks like you're going to be the assistant VP?
Senior VP, I think.
Senior VP.
I'm not even sure, but anyway, I started with yeah, no,
Sure.
I think it's senior VP for strategy and policy at Uber.
And that's by the end of this month, correct?
Right, I start on September 29th.
Wow. So what are you planning, first of all, what spurred the decision to transfer from this political work that you've done most of your life all of a sudden to this entirely new line? And what do you think your political role will play in how to strategize for Uber instead of for
Well,
Canada?
I think it's a great company, and I've been a fan of it long before this became, you know, even a twinkle in my eye. But I was done with campaign politics. I mean, it doesn't mean I won't be available for advice or counsel, and I'm not giving it now. But as a profession, I think you have to know when to hang them up, so to speak. I don't think I could bring the passion that's required for someone like I did for Barack Obama. And so, you know, I was clearly not going to be in the trenches, so to speak. And so the opportunity to go into the business world for a company I think is doing very important disruptive things, that's improving a lot of lives and certainly changing transportation, I think in a positive way, was really intriguing possibility. And I mentioned earlier in the interview the importance of good people. You know, they're filled with good people there, at the senior level, at the junior level. Everybody seems like they believe they're on a mission. And that's good. This is not just going to be about the bottom line. And so I think it's a good environment for me to go see if I can help them build on what they've already built, which is quite impressive, you know, in over 43 countries, 200 cities, you know, big presence here in Washington, but a lot more places could use a transportation alternative. So I'm excited to try it out, and you know, maybe it'll be the rest of my life, maybe it'll be a period of my life, but I do think that you know, it's important to not be too sedate.
We've taken you from your beginning all the way up to the new challenges you're going to be facing. Thank you so much for coming in and just describing this entire, basically your political career.
It's sad that it can be summed up in 20 minutes, but there you have it.
I'm
There's
sure we
your
could
life.
talk for another 20 if we had the time.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure.